전체주에 만났습니다. 그는 나를 딸이라고 불렀고 나는 그를 아빠라고 불렀습니다.
That year, the Turkish army was called upon by the United States to take part in a war, which was miles and miles away from their homeland, to help the Korean people. For the American officers, it was already over, but that war, which was thought to have ended, actually started that night. On the night of the 26th of November, a Turkish brigade came under attack by 350,000 Chinese soldiers. In fact, news had spread about the impending attack, but the Turkish brigade wasn't informed. While the soldiers of all the other countries were able to retreat, the Turkish troops were surrounded by enemy fire. They fought bravely for 4 days and 3 nights, and they were able to turn the ambush into a heroic victory. But they also paid a price for that victory. That historic battle went down in history as Kuniri Battle. Thousands of miles away from the battlefront, people in Turkey were anxiously following what was happening from the radio and newspapers. The families of thousands of Turkish soldiers were waiting to hear from their husbands, brothers, and sons. His family was one of those lucky ones. Sergeant Suleyman survived the Battle of Kuniri, and he retreated together with his troops. The survived troops were mentally collapsed at the end of 4 days. As the moonlight shone on the path they walked on, they spotted something in the bushes. They aimed their rifles in that direction, thinking that it could have been another ambush. Sergeant Suleyman told the soldiers to lower their rifles, and he approached the bushes. Moonlight illuminated the way. He found a little child trembling with fear. Suleyman took this little girl into his arms, starting a bond that would last for 60 years. She had no identification papers that connected with her family. She was 5 years old at most. He knew they couldn't leave her there. So that's how their journey started. When the troops set up a camp, they sought pajamas out of blankets for her. She also needed a name. Sergeant Suleyman named this girl, who had a face like a moon and had been found in the moonlight, Ayla. That means moon in Turkish. Ayla's family was never found. The Turkish troops were retreating from north to south, moving place to place all the time. Ayla's new home and the playground was these camps. She had become an orphan princess who was in the middle of the war. It was as if Sergeant Suleyman was her father and all the other soldiers were her uncles and brothers. As Ayla went on playing games, the war was raging not far from all. Every day, Sergeant Suleyman lost more of his soldiers. The survivors can still remember the details of the anguish they suffered in those days. Suleyman and Ayla clung to each other tightly in that hell. 15 months passed in the blink of an eye. The war was officially over. It was time for the Turkish troops to go back home. But it was also time for Sergeant Suleyman and Ayla to part ways. Suleyman couldn't take Ayla with him because of the Korean law. She was subject to the procedures for orphans. She was to stay in a daycare center, and the government was going to look after her. Sergeant Suleyman decided to take the risk of sneaking Ayla into Turkey. He hid her inside a chest, but they got caught. Sergeant Suleyman left Korea without hope and without Ayla. But when he was holding her for the last time, he made a promise. "You are my daughter," he said. "I will never forget you, and one day I will hold you in my arms again." As the years passed, Sergeant Suleyman got married and went on with his life. But he never forgets about his spiritual daughter, Ayla. He showed pictures of Ayla to his wife. And one day, he got an invitation from the Korean government for a commemoration of the 60th anniversary of the Korean War. Was Ayla still alive? And would Sergeant Suleyman be able to see her again one last time? He made one last effort to uphold a promise he had made years ago. He was a father before he was a soldier. Fathers fight for their promises and live for their children. But when all his hopes was lost, they found a lead. It turned out that she was living just outside of Seoul with her grandchildren and working as a janitor. There was only one question left. Would Ayla remember the days when she was 5 and Sergeant Suleyman had looked after her? A team of Koreans visited her at her house with the aim of finding answers to that question.
이렇게 꿈에도 그리던 분을 이렇게 사진으로 보니까 너무 감격하네. 이 사진들을 보니까 어렴풋이 조금씩은 생각이 나는 것 같아요. 뭐 그래가지고 무슨 괴짝 같은 거 있잖아요. 괴짝 같은 거에다가 짐을 실어가지고 나를 거기다 누워서 그렇게 해가지고 이제 데려가려고 그런 생각도 얼뜻 나거든요. 이렇게 좋은 일이 있을 줄은 몰랐어요. 다시 되돌아왔거든요.
Acaba nasıl, hani ne kadar büyümüş, ne kadar gelişmiş, yani o çocukluk durumdan 60 sene sonra böyle bir şey karşılaşmak, ben hala gözlerime yaş geliyor yani, ama kafam karma karışık yani. Gelen diye mi o Ayla?
매일 찾으셨어요. 진짜 감사합니다. 얼마나 보고 싶어.
Ya sen bu kadar üzüldün, böyle bu kadar üzüldün.